The City of Annapolis primary election is Tuesday, September 16th. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and if you are in line by 8, you will still be able to vote. There is no Republican primary this year, as all Republican candidates are unopposed and will advance to the November general election. On the Democratic side, there are contested races for mayor and in wards 1, 3, 4, and 6. If you received a mail-in ballot, it must be received, not just postmarked by 4:30 p.m. on September 12th. Ballots can be mailed, dropped in an official drop box, delivered to City Hall, or taken to your polling place on Election Day. Ion Annapolis offered every candidate in the challenge race the opportunity to speak with us. We reached out to each campaign 3 times. Each candidate was asked these same questions, and their answers are presented here, unedited and in their own words. No one received the questions in advance, and in fairness, all of these conversations are being released at the same time. We do plan to do something similar for the general election once the ballot is set. Please have a listen to each of these candidates so you can make an informed vote. Well, I am a happy camper because this is the last of my Ward 1 aldermanic candidate discussions. And today joining us on the phone is Genevieve Torri, who is a candidate for Ward 1 Alderwoman. How are you? And thank you very much for your time.
I'm doing great. How are you, John? Thanks for having me.
And more so than thank you for your time, I want to thank you for throwing your hat into the ring. It takes a lot of courage to do it. And win, lose, or draw, I do appreciate everything that you have done, actually way back when with the Arts Council, but throwing your hat into the ring to make this happen. So do you want to get into it and see what we got?
Sure, let's do it.
Awesome. All right. Elephant in the room, or elephant down on the dock. The city dock resiliency and flooding. We're moving forward with a major city dock resiliency project, as everybody knows or should know, to protect downtown from frequent flooding and sea rise. Do you support the current plan, and how would you ensure its success if you are elected to Ward 1?
Yes. So I served on the Nitty Gritty Committee, which was the precursor to the comprehensive plan that the city just put out. I also sat on the City Dock Action Committee plan committee. Sorry. And that collaboration within, the businesses and the community and the city brought forth a fabulous plan. And it was the greatest thing I've ever seen with, everybody coming together and, putting forth a plan that we all felt really confident behind and were actually in love with. So I do support that plan. I do 100% think that in order for our downtown to be sustainable, we do need to address the flooding. I mean, it's been flooding forever, but we're also seeing more frequent flooding, not just, rain flooding or, high tide flooding. And I know that there's some contention about changes in the plan that were made and, from the City Dock Action Committee plan. And I do plan on addressing that. I don't understand, honestly, why we can't be more like mediators and come to the table and have conversations versus, going straight to litigation because we feel frustrated that, we can't have a conversation between parties to understand what is happening or why the changes were made or why we don't like the changes that were made. So if I'm elected as Alderwoman, I would definitely encourage these conversations. I think we definitely need to find solutions since it is a very contentious topic and it's overshadowing the resiliency plan that we have for downtown and hopefully get us all back on the same page.
Fantastic. I want to slide into crime and public safety for a minute.
Okay.
And several neighborhoods are facing public safety challenges. And back in 24, Ward 7 actually was one of the worst in the city for violent crimes. It had a homicide, 2 rapes, and multiple robberies. City officials have said there's, common issues like thefts from unlocked vehicles citywide. They've discussed solutions for that, such as better street lighting, community policing, et cetera, to deter crime. What do you think we need to do to improve public safety in Annapolis?
As far as, are we looking at preventative for crime? Is that? what you're looking for this question? Like, I mean, it's so many layers. I'm like, what would you like me to focus on?
Give me a layer. Your choice.
Okay. Well, the foundation of our city is our community. So when our community is left to make decisions or choices that are not beneficial to the whole community, sorry, and threaten the safety of others, we need to look at why these choices are being made. I feel that if, in addition to the things that they have recommended with community policing, brighter lights, and they've picked up the communication from the police department expressing, 8 o'clock, your 8 o'clock checklist, make sure that your doors are locked on your cars, everything's put away, etc. I think that's great. I think we need more community communication and responsibility, but we also have to figure out how we can lift up our communities to make them be in positions where the bad choices aren't being made, and focus needs to happen in particular wards that we're seeing crime rates increase. And that's making community connections, broadening our community outreach programs, ensuring that our neighbors have their services being met. We have big issues with food deserts and transportation deserts and job deserts in a number of our wards. And I would like to work on that with the council and figure out how we can bring better services in. People have their needs being met, and then work with, the community outreach with the police department and as well as the mayor's office to figure out what other services and programs are missing.
Fantastic. Housing costs are a growing concern for many Annapolitans. In fact, Maryland voters recently ranked housing as affordability as their number one concern, even above taxes and crime. And that same survey found that 42% of younger renters are considering leaving the state due to the cost of high living. What are your thoughts to make Annapolis a little bit more affordable? Or a lot more affordable?
A lot more affordable, definitely, 100%. Not even just a little bit. There's a number of issues that are at hand here. I know some people feel that we have enough density, but it is proven that if you have different types of housing in greater volumes, that you can drive down the cost of housing more because there's more competition. But that's only for like our affordable housing or middle housing, sector, which is missing. Generally speaking, we just had some new assessments done for our houses. That's going to basically, the new property tax is going to rise off of those new assessments. And a lot of those assessments were ballooned. Case in point, the assessment that was on our house is $400,000 over what my bank appraisal was last month. So now we have to take the steps, to contest it and bring it back down to what the bank appraisal was. But next year, off of that assessment, our taxes are going to raise 9.9%, unless you have the homestead tax credit from the state, which is an option, and then that brings it back down to 2%. If you qualify. But I think that's a program that people need to they need to know more about, as well as we need to look at how else the city can make a different type of revenue besides just taxes and parking fees. And that would take a collaboration between the businesses, the residents, and all of city council to sit down with our city departments and our city manager and figure out what the opportunities are here in town that we could use, and use other models of cities from the 1600s up and down the Eastern Shoreboard. They've handled these situations too. They're going through the same type of growth problems, meeting modern requirements, and how do you do that? A city that was built in the 1600s originally is expensive to maintain, and we need to find other solutions.
Economic development. Annapolis economy really relies heavily on tourism, government, It's contributed to an income inequality and a reputation that it's really too difficult to do business here. There was a local developer that said, "I'm never spending money in this town again," out of frustration with the red tape. What are your ideas to make the city more business friendly, but yet still preserving the charming character that tourism is built on it?
Well, I think in general, again, if we go back to the 1600s when our city was first, founded, it was a trade port, which was for commerce. And I think that has always been a root of what our city's base was, big farmers on the Eastern Shore came here to trade their goods. And then our fishermen were down at City Dock for a long, long time. So business is a key factor to the city center. From that, once the port was becoming a big financial gain for this area, the residents started coming, and then we needed shopkeepers, and we needed different services, blacksmiths, etc. And I think that if we look at that basic city center concept and bring that back to downtown, where downtown services the residents as well as the tourists, I think we're going to get a better experience downtown. Generally, when you visit other cities, you're going because, it has some sort of like good community feel, or it's offering you something that you don't get at home. And I think if we build on the community here, that you will see the economic stability or sustainability improving, because the residents are going downtown and they're enjoying downtown and they're using the services down there. And it would also increase us as a walkable city. And then the tourists are seeing that, and then they, will gladly be a part of it as well.
As far as transportation and residents, we need to get them around. As far as residents and visitors, we need to get them around, and traffic congestion and parking shortages, especially during the tourist season and special events, are perennial problems. Public transit options are limited. Residents complain about the difficulty in getting around. Of course, we've got the garage issues and street parking issues in Ward 1. What are your thoughts and plans to improve mobility and parking here in the city and Ward 1?
Yeah, so transportation, I think a lot of it is communication isn't being absorbed about our options that we have in the city. We've got the Go option. We also have the circulators, and the bus route do need some sort of tweaking. I have a lot of residents who complain a lot about the buses not being on time, and I think the transportation department has been working on that. I have to double check to see what's happening. But with the Annapolis Go, it's like an on-demand system, which is really great. So with the parking in the garages, the most inexpensive parking garage to park at is out here in Ward 1 in Park Place. And you can catch the circulator in from there. You can also order the Annapolis Go. So both the circulator and the Annapolis Go drop you off exactly where you want to be, which is so much more convenient than parking at another garage and then having to walk 3 blocks. If that's not your idea of experiencing downtown Annapolis, then you would use these other forms of transportation. In the city's been communicating about these, but I really don't think it's being absorbed. Per the parking garage, I really think that if we could get the downtown parking garage, if we could get Hillman to be on the same system as all of our other parking garages, I think that would ease up a lot of frustration from our residents as well. For future solutions, as your Alderwoman, we have discussed possibly, coordinating buses with the county and having the county take over the bus routes, the big bus routes. And then that way it would be easier for our residents to travel to employment elsewhere instead of taking a city bus to a county bus stop and having to switch buses. That would need further discussion between the county and the city and the transportation department, of course, and city manager. I think for parking on the street, I would like to see some sort of benefit and easement for residents who don't have off-street parking and there's quite a few houses downtown Annapolis. I don't know if we can go back to making, parking out in front of the houses for the residential area that's really dense just for the residents somehow, make them have the ability to have like one parking spot in front of their house. I think these are all things that we could talk about to see if that would help ease them. 'Cause I do have a friend who lives on Pinckney Street, and of course, she can't park on her street, but she does do some driving around a lot of times just to find that parking spot. So she'll have to pull up to her house. She drops off her groceries, and then she does a few laps of the blocks and finds parking. I mean, I remember back in the day when you had a Annapolis City parking sticker and you could park overnight in the garages for free, and you could park in the garage for free. So uh, you know, we'd have to look at parking revenue. Obviously, that has gone down with the new contract with the Hillman Garage. So I don't know if they would be willing to, lose any more parking revenue by doing some free stuff for the residents. But I think that it's definitely something that we should look at and have a discussion with.
Great. Well, I want to slide over here into education and youth. While the city government doesn't control the schools, which kind of are run by the county, our leaders still do have an impact on education and youth here in Annapolis. How would you support educational opportunities and youth programs?
Hey, John, I can't hear you.
Oh, are you there? Hello? 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 Hello?
Hey, there you are.
Okay.
Hi. Did you get all that parking stuff, or do
I did.
Okay, good. I was just like, oh no, that was a mouthful. I'm gonna have to do it again.
Yeah, repeat it. I want to slide over into education and youth programs. The city government doesn't control the schools. They're kind of under their purview, sort of the county, but our leaders still have an impact on education and youth. In Annapolis, how are you going to support educational opportunities and youth programs here in the city?
Well, so a couple things here. I used to be on the PTA at the Annapolis Elementary School, and while we were there, we made sure that they were having career day, and our electeds were coming in and discussing how government affects their daily lives. Because, as we all know, municipal government, especially, is something that can touch you daily. I'm also I homeschool my two boys. Now they're last year of elementary school and last year of middle school. But I am moderated and reviewed through the county, so it's a county program. I think that we can influence by talking to our city council members and also our representative on the school board, Joanna Tobin, to find ways that the city could help with maybe after school programming funding, working with our children in order for I'm sorry, I just had a blank there. For hands-on learning and for like maker spaces, and so they can learn more technical um sorry, more technical programming, like visual arts and things that we're seeing jobs be more reliant upon, learning how to use AI, how to, stream, how to podcast, and all these things so they can find things within the new job market that they are interested in.
Fantastic. City residents do expect open and ethical government, as stated in the ethics guidelines for the city. Quote, holding the public trust requires maintaining high ethical standards. How are you going to promote transparency and accountability when you're elected and seated there at the desk? Because I don't think you have offices at City Hall.
No, we don't have individual offices. We're all kind of together, but that helps create a community of city council, I would hope. As far as ethics and transparency, I am an extremely ethical, transparent person. When I was on Arts and Public Places for 6 years, I actually brought it up to operational code. We changed the administration. I worked with the legal department, ethics, and the city manager's office to coordinate and create new operational guidelines. We made sure that all of our meetings were recorded so people could come back later if they happen to miss the meeting and be able to see what was discussed. The the items that were coming up for grants with the budget were released in enough time for public comment. So I truly believe that the communication between our um, our residents and city council must be open at all times, and that you have to build the trust within the community in order for them to work with you and also to appreciate that the work that you are doing. So as open as I can be, I used to think Ellie did a really great job with her emails outlining each individual um, um, legislation that they were presenting, what it really meant, how it would touch you as a person from day to day, whether it affected what portions of the city. And I think that should definitely be done moving forward. I also think that if we're going to be doing legislation, we need to make sure that you know it's the voice of the community. It's what they want. I think a lot of the inflamed issues right now are because the residents don't feel like they're being heard, and that legislation is being written per self interests of the council versus a representation of what Ward 1 has asked.
All right. Well, this is my favorite question and topic here.
Okay.
The current mayor and council, or most of the current council, are out of here come December. Okay, we're going to have a new mayor. We're going to have most of a new council. Been a lot of discussion about their legacy. Some praise Mayor Buckley. One candidate for mayor even said he's one of the best mayors we've ever had. There's also been critics that are screaming about the City Dock project ballooning maybe from $40 to $100 million. What, in your view, what did the outgoing administration do right, and where did it fall short?
So honestly, we passed some really good environmental legislation. I would definitely say that I have seen improvements. I live near Spa Creek, and the no dumping has um, been a benefit to us. The dumping has decreased, I guess is how I should say it. We have less bacteria blooms back there, and the water is clearing, and the wildlife's coming back. There's less die off because the vultures have moved on. So for like about 4 years, we had a big family of vultures over here. They're no longer here because the food sources has gone away because our wildlife and our ecosystems in the creek are better. So I like to thank them for tackling those hard challenges. And as far as falling short, I think there were a lot of promises made regarding legislation and exploring what legislation is putting us in a box and making it harder to work. Like businesses are finding a hard time to invest money. It's costing them so much money to go through the permitting process and make all the changes per code. I think a deep dive definitely is necessary to see, if our policy and our codes are making it harder for businesses to operate downtown, as well as are they making it harder for residents to invest in their houses? I already know, as somebody who's done projects on my houses, I've done 2 projects with the city, or finalizing one right now, that it takes a lot of money just to get the project started. And I feel that's kind of like we've raised the bar too high for, our somebody who has a starter home, first time home, let's say it's a 2-bedroom, and they want to do renovations to it, but they're requiring that they hire an architect and pay like $30,000 for plans to submit just to get the permit. I think we need to look at that and figure out there's a way that we could have part of the permitting process be like some sort of assistant to people who just don't have that much money up front. And they're probably going to do most of the renovations themselves, but they want to make sure that it's being inspected and it's safe. And it's just options, like, just to make it just work better. I think we needed that, and we didn't get that. And we do have a new director of planning and zoning. I do want to give a shout out to Chris that he is working through the issues that had existed before, and that is good to see. But I think we also need to look at the legislation that might be making departments function harder than it should be.
Budgets. Annapolis has to do more with less, it seems. We've got so much federal, county, and state properties, along with a bunch of nonprofits that are not contributing to the tax base. In recent mayoral debates, candidates were asked how they'd account for any financial gaps that may be coming from federal funding to the city. As a council member, what would be your budget priorities? What are you going to fight for when February rolls around?
Well, I think first off, we need to look at the operational deficit that we have and versus the revenue coming in. And so we discussed earlier that we need to explore other ways that the city can make revenue in order to make up those deficits. With certain funding coming from, state and federal not being a guaranteed option as much anymore right now, because they're dealing with their own deficits, I think Annapolis needs to look to be a little more independent, and that's going to take some big conversations. I don't feel that there's really much that we could cut from the budget as far as like operational costs, because we do need our departments and we need them to be staffed properly in order for the residents to feel that, services are occurring on time and with a good quality that.
Hello?
Community programming. Like I said before, that when the community is strong and it's our pillar, it'll lift up the city and it keeps the structure sustainable. There's a lot more that we could look at in the budget as far as looking at other grants from other nonprofits maybe coming in, and maybe too having a conversation with the state and county about, the cost that their offices being here affects on the city and how we can maybe come to an agreement to help each other out.
True. Voters often feel disconnected from their elected officials. How do you plan to engage your constituents and stay accountable and keep them informed in between elections?
Well, again, communication is key. I think, having, so to speak, an open door policy, allow your constituents to have the ability to contact you, respond to their emails. I will say, as a commissioner for the city, there were some older people who were really, really good at responding to my emails, and there was some that just never responded. And that's not the type of representative I would be. I would definitely be responsive. I would definitely, answer phone calls, return phone calls if I've missed your call, and be out in the community as well. I think when people view you as a neighbor and not as just an elected person who is telling them what to do with their day-to-day lives, I think you have a better relationship. So I am out in the community. I am downtown every day. I walk 3 miles every day. Stop and talk to all my neighbors and the businesses. And then also when I was chair of Arts and Public Places, I was programming all kinds of free art events throughout the city. I attend those, as well as I volunteer my time working with community outreach. And I would continue to do those things. And I think that's appreciated by the city residents, because they see you, they know you as a neighbor and not just somebody who sits up in City Hall a couple times a month and makes legislation that they feel makes living here harder.
I want to talk about each of the Annapolis's 8 wards has their own unique feel to it, their own unique concerns and needs. in your ward, Ward 1, what do you think is the single most pressing issue facing the community today? And how are you going to look to maybe address that once elected?
So in Ward 1, it really is affordability. It's the cost of living here and being able to afford to be here. A lot of my neighbors within my block area and over a couple blocks are on fixed incomes. They've been here, 40, 50 years, and the ballooning costs definitely affect them the most. We've talked about um, property taxes being adjusted, based on your income, as well as, like maybe, because they're senior living and they're on fixed incomes. It's something else we can look at. I think there's many aspects of why it's becoming increasingly more and more expensive to be here. Of course, right now we're seeing a rise in all costs of goods. Generally, nothing has come down. So that also makes it harder, because when you're buying your groceries or gas or whatever, that is more expensive on top of the housing costs and the property taxes going up. So we need to figure out what we can do. I'm not going to make any empty promises of I'm not going to promise property tax decreases, because if you look at the budget and you look at what's happening with the cost of everything to run the city, I don't think anybody can honestly promise you a property tax decrease within the next 4 years. But I think if we figure out revenue for the city and making downtown sustainable and the businesses easier to operate, then you're going to have more consumer taxes coming in from the businesses. And then maybe at that point, we could start talking about property tax coming down, or like not doing the continuation of increasing it up to 9.9%. I would like to talk with the city council about capping that property tax increase the same as like the county does, making it much, much lower. It says, we can do it at 10% increments, but I think we need to bring that down. That 10% is a lot. It's a big jump. And for a lot of people, and especially for my neighbors who are on fixed incomes.
And you may have alluded to a little bit of this throughout the other questions, but as a council member, you're going to represent, obviously, your ward's interests, but you also have to make decisions for the overall good of the city as a whole. How do you balance the needs of your ward, Ward 1, with the needs of Annapolis as a whole?
I honestly think what happens in Ward 5, 7, 3, whatever, does affect Ward 1 too, and vice versa. So I think we're pretty collaborative, and I think that's how you address Ward 1's needs is if we're having failures in other wards, then Ward 1 is going to feel that, and especially downtown. Ward 1's a very special, unique ward because of the fact that we are the downtown center, and the majority of our businesses are downtown, and we need to take that into consideration. And if we can we can uplift the other wards, through the other council representatives, then I think Ward 1's going to feel more trusting environment. They're going to think that we're doing the work. They're going to see the work being done, and they're going to feel a little less overwhelmed by negative things that are affecting their life.
Good deal. Well, here is the end of this thing. As we start to wrap it up, there are about 14,000 people that subscribe to this, and then whoever listens to it at Ion Annapolis and all the socials and everything else where we put it back. But here is your chance. It's an open mic for Genevieve Torri, who is a candidate for Ward 1 Alderwoman. Pitch our listeners, why do we need to vote for Genevieve Torri in the upcoming election on September 16th?
Well, I actually applied for the nomination when Ellie vacated her seat, and I'm not trying to come across as conceited or ring my own bell, or toot my own horn, whatever I want to say. But honestly, I have the best resume. If we looked at this as like a job interview, as I do when I vote, my resume and experience far outweighs everybody else is, and within the city collective. The work that I did with the city was community work. I do understand the different layers of our community and the things that everybody's going through, not just as a neighbor, but also through my outreach. Additionally, being Ward 1 commissioner allowed me to have a wonderful experience of working with all of the city departments and getting to know the department heads and the staff and how those departments operate, what they deal with in the city and what may not be working within their departments too. I still have those relationships. I still hear things that are happening in the departments and the wishes and stuff of the department heads working with the council. So I bring that to the table. I feel that I'm a mediator mentality. I don't think we need to, go for the jugular right away. I think we can have these conversations. I think everybody wants to find solutions, and they want to come together and they want to be heard. And I would definitely welcome that climate. I feel, in today's political scenes, I think a lot of us are feeling polarized. We're not fitting into a group or whatever. But I don't think that's how it should be. I think the O in Annapolis should definitely stand for opportunity, not for oppression or obstruction, and not obscuring what's happening. And I would continue that basis on representation. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, or patriot, or whatever your identity politics are. I still think you're my neighbor, and I still think we need to come together, and we can definitely build forward in a better future for tomorrow by just being better to each other as a community.